welcome to another episode of our series talking about handmade, historical handmade and how it changed up until today. We'll be talking about another handmade technique that you can meet in Poland. Enjoy!
Polish handmade, history and present times. Welcome to another episode of series of interviews with Polish handmade artists. You will find the original interview in a previous episode, and since it is in Polish, I just sum it up here in English, just to give you a glimpse of what we've been talking about. I decided that translating it word for word seems pointless. We've talked with Karolina. Karolina has already been guest to this podcast 2 times. We laughed that 3rd time's the charm, but nevertheless, I rediscovered weaving with her. Maybe you will also find a new angle to it. As Karolina admitted, weaving is one of the oldest handmade techniques. Even in ancient times, we find information about threads hanged from trees with heavy stone on the bottom as a weaving loom. At the beginning, this technique was strictly functional, used mainly for clothes. Later on, it developed into decorative arroses, tapestry, parts of furniture or carpets. We know of those made of silk or even those with the use of golden threads. Even today, the materials used for weaving may surprise. There are works of weaving art made even from recycled plastic. When it comes to Polish weaving, there is no chance Karolina could miss double warp fabric, rediscovered by Eleonora Plutyńska after the Second World War. We discussed a bit this topic. Plutyńska was the one who, fascinated by weaving techniques, created a whole group of women who traveled across Poland to popularize this technique. We find the reinterpretations of those works present in our culture up till this very day. We also discussed with Karolina this Hucel fabrics, Polish kilims by Olga Stryjeńska, the designer, and pondered upon some minor motifs in Polish weaving after the Second World War. I asked Karolina if, in her opinion, we may talk about typically Polish, school of weaving. She pointed out double warp fabric as such Polish one, if we were supposed to mention a traditional Polish weaving. She laughed about pop handmade, as she called extremely popular pattern from Łowicz region that exploded on felt bags or souvenirs and also in some weaving works. But she used it as an example for a beautiful trend. A so to say comeback of old patterns in a new, up-to-date, remodeled or modernized form. Karolina quickly went back to technique that she is most fluent at. Weaving at a weaving frame. She admitted that traditional patterns are also most popular here and not so many artists explore modern directions. I can see the field for her as well. She wondered if that is because how much of a time-consuming technique this is. There is no point to start weaving for an hour or 2, as she admits. 3-4 hours is the minimum she plans in order to actually see some results, as she says, a certain bearable level of satisfaction. I asked her, a bit provocatively, how she sees weaving in the contrast to our faster and faster pace. Our everyday packed tightly up with various tasked lives. And thus she sees weaving as, directing into simplification, making it even quicker. She admitted she does not think so, but quite the opposite. She assumes that only one thing we need to change is the use of such art. She thinks it will shift from applied arts more and more into miniatures, collections of individual pieces of weaving art, etc. She admitted that with small forms there is even more work than with those spectacular oversized wall decorations. Thus, she assumes those will be the direction to go also for her advancement. Those jewelry precision works, as she called her, will be a breath of fresh air into this technique and a test for many weaving hands. I also believe that this is going to be a luxury to afford weaved miniature piece of art, especially in those crazy hectic times where every hour is a precious thing that we lose. I invited Karolina to discuss the manner in which she will teach weaving during our future workshops. Hopefully Corona will end one day and we will get back to our handmade workshops here in Poznań or in many other places we visit. She admitted that she is planning to go small, meaning her weaving frames will not be huge as usually, but quite the opposite. She will go into this miniaturization direction. Maybe she will aim at creating works that can be framed just like paintings. She also shared her plans to use weaving warp as a visible element of her works. I must admit, she got me very curious with that, and I really hope we will manage to show you those techniques, her ideas during workshops. One thing I managed to make Karolina promise to us, she will share photos of her works in the article on our project's webpage, so I can gladly welcome you to this page. It'll be linked down below. What I can add from myself, those little things you sometimes remember most, even if they seem unimportant. She surprised me with information that weaving is a little bit like painting. She does a couple of threads and then she moves away to look at the fabric from a distance. Does a couple more and then again she moves back. And the process repeats until the whole work is ready. How much does it remind us of, mindful actions? That's something to be taught. Of course, I asked Karolina to name some places to be if one is interested in weaving. She named popular exhibition, international Polish weaving events and competitions, and community meetups. We'll link them down below as well. We both agreed that even though we feel macrame is currently a top handmade trend, we will do our best to make Polish weaving also popular, and we will gladly reinterpret it with fans and handmade lovers, both from Poland and abroad. I hope I see you in the next episode.